Greetings, fellow gamers. Welcome to a Mystery House playthrough. Since this game is a little dry to look at and also technically not a DOS game, I don't know why I'm saying technically because it is not a DOS game. And the version you're seeing here is the Apple II version. But since I'm doing a Sierra Bonanza type of sprint in my videos, I decided to cover this wonderful piece of history in the graphical adventure genre. Why is this game important? Well, and why is it the first graphical adventure? At first glance, some people might say, well, hey, this looks like a really bad interactive fiction game where it has graphics on screen and big deal. But hey, the big distinction between this graphical adventure game and interactive fiction games is basically that in this game, not all of the actions your character does and things that happen are described in text. A lot of them are just represented by the graphics changing. For example, in this part of the game, when you open the cabinet, it doesn't say the cabinet opens. The graphics just update to show that the cabinet doors are not opened. And this, believe it or not, was a bit of a pivotal moment in the graphical adventure genre. Because if you've played any of the Quest series from Sierra, Space Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, Police Quest, whatever, you'll notice that not always are the things you do explained in text, and also not always the things that are available to you on screen, like inventory-wise, like items to pick up, are explained in text. Sure, you often, let's say you're looking inside of a closet, you do look or examine, it'll say, oh, you see this or that, but ultimately it's not presented as such. I'm pretty sure that what this allowed was to obviously alleviate the amount of text you had to read, and also sort of bridge the gap between sort of a static novel-like picture and have more of an interactive element with the graphics on screen, right? Because a lot of interactive fiction games at the time, some of them had nice pictures and stuff, but they were kind of static. They were just like complementing the text, whereas in this game, the graphics were more a center part to the game. When you pick up an item, it goes away from the screen, and sometimes it doesn't even tell you the item is there. You have to sort of see like, oh, what is this? Obviously, the graphics are extremely crude. Part of it maybe because of the emulator, but so might be hard to say what's on screen, but this is a key concept. It's sort of a, how some games are tech demos. I would call this a concept demo, because that's pretty much what it is, right? So so I wanted to mention this because obviously this is going to be a bit of a dry video to watch, so I thought listening to me explain why I find this game relevant in my Sierra Bonanza videos, give a bit of a background to it. So there you have it. And what else is there to say? Yeah, it's kind of interesting how Roberta got into game design. From what I understand, Ken Williams was working at some tech company, and at one point he brought a terminal computer back home, and Roberta got her hands on, I think, was it the Great Adventure? Anyways, some interactive fiction game, and it totally consumed her life. I think I read a blog post detailing, I think, an interview about it, where she said that, she was having trouble focusing on her life and balancing her kids because she was constantly just thinking about the interactive fiction game on the computer, and she just wanted to solve all the puzzles and figure out, how to finish it. So that, I think, what probably, sowed the first seeds of her desire to become a game developer, and I'm glad she did, because definitely the King Quest series and all of the good things that came out of Sierra were a huge staple to my childhood, so kudos for them to making it happen. So this was basically her first attempt at making a graphical adventure game. Obviously, much more closer to the interactive fiction model, whereas once you see King Quest and how the graphics are, definitely central to the gameplay, text is almost secondary. I remember as a kid, I didn't, I am a French Canadian initially, so although my parents on my mom's side were Anglophones, I didn't have that much of a good grasp of English. So when I was playing these King Quest games, I was understanding the text, but as I think I was with sometime at 1.8 when I played them, so not the best grasp of the situation. But because of their heavy emphasis on graphics and easily understanding that if I see a door and I write open door and the door opens, I can go through it. There was some kind of a accessibility factor, whereas when I would play interactive fiction games, I would be easier. It was more easy. I was more easily confused on how to play it. So that was one thing. So yeah, and here, well, there you go. I can include a little trivia of my life here, and basically, it's how I got to finally play adventure games. Because when I was a kid, I had access to a Commodore 64. My brother had a sort of copy company where people would bring in games and he would copy them, and he would have this big inventory and they do this trade. I think this was in the early days of copyright, so it was kind of a gray area. Obviously that didn't last forever, but the cool part of that was that I ended up with a huge catalog of Commodore 64 games. I don't know if you know those big metal filing cabinets. I had 2 of them with 4 drawers, and they were 5.25-inch discs. So 4 of those 4 drawers were full of only Commodore 64 games. So 2 full rows of those 5.25-inch discs. I mean, I don't know how many there were, but it was kind of almost countless. Especially when you're a kid. My brother had printed out a whole list of games and put them in a binder. I would just flip through them, and if a title sounded interesting, I'd pop in the game and try it out. Anyways, I kind of digress. This is almost another story of my infinite access to cool games when I was a kid. But to go back to the Graphical Adventure story. So, although I was able to use the Commodore 64 and understood all the commands and how to load a program, my brother was kind of not too keen on me using his 8086 XT. That was kind of his thing, right? So he didn't want me to play on it too much. But being who I was, I kind of would spy on him sometimes when he had friends over to play games. And I remember seeing him playing King Quest 1 or 3, I'm not sure which one, and also Leisure Suit Larry. And I was in the stairs looking at them, and I was like, holy crap, it's like they're in this virtual world and they're exploring all these areas and doing things. And man, it was so exciting for me. I just had to play. But my brother kept telling me, nah, I'm not going to show you how to play it, how to use the computer. Just stick to the Commodore 64. You have enough games. Like, leave my computer alone. So I was like, yeah, fine. So then I tried on my own when he was away. I turn on the computer, but as those of you who are familiar with computers at the time, especially the 8086 or 386s or whatever, you kind of had to put in a DOS disk and then boot the computer. If you didn't put in your DOS in a disk inside of your computer before booting, it wouldn't boot. It would say no system disk or something like that. I don't remember the exact error message, but whatever. So, and I didn't understand this, so I found the Quest games with the names on it, so I would put them inside of the computer, turn them on, didn't work. So I was like, damn. But then I was trying a bunch of other games, and then I noticed something peculiar. My brother had, some discs had a little red dot on them, and others didn't. And I was like, why is that? I didn't understand. So I took one of the discs that had a little red dot, put it in, and then boom. Oh, it was an auto boot game. So the game had I think the system files built in it, so you didn't have to have DOS inside of your computer in order to run it. You just pop it in, boot your computer, boom, you were playing. I don't remember which game. I think it was Harrier or something, some flight sim. So anyways, I was like just so thrilled to finally be able to play on the computer, and I think I lost track of time, and next thing I know, my brother walks in and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And instead of being mad, and that because I was sure I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, he's going to take away my Commodore 64. I'm not going to be able to play anymore. This is the end. But he was actually, hey, how on earth did you manage to start playing a game? I don't think he understood that it was an auto boot game right away, because he was like, what the hell? He figured out how to use DOS and launch a game? What the hell? But no, so I told him and then I told him my little investigation phase and how I figured out that the games with red dots were able to auto boot, whereas the ones that didn't wouldn't work. And then he told me, aha! So he then explained to me that you needed to use DOS and boom, right away I got a little quick tutorial on how to use DOS, and he told me that, okay, fine, when I'm not at home, if you want to try some of the games, fine, you do what you want, but just don't mess up my computer. So like, of course, I love tech, so I was definitely not inclined to mess anything up of his. So anyways, and to be honest, I say this jokingly to some of my friends sometimes, but I tell them one of my first friends' name was Commodore 64, because I kid you not, my earliest memories of being alive was playing Commodore 64 games with my brother. He would show me these math games and whatever educational games to try to get me to like computers or whatever. Little did he know that it would, basically turn into a full-blown obsession. So there you go. A little bit of history of the medieval nerd. There you go. I don't know what I'm talking anymore about. So, damn. Hey, this video is long. I think it took me 15 minutes to finish it, and there was something so annoying, and you'll probably notice if you were paying attention to what I was typing on screen, is the damn emulator. For some reason, sometimes I type and it reads a double tap. And also, annoyingly enough, and I think this might have been some limitation of the Apple II computer, a computer which I've never used, by the way, is you couldn't do backspace. When you do backspace, it just does this weird character. So if you do any typo of what you're trying to write, basically you're going to have to enter an erroneous command, and then it has to refresh the screen. And there's this weird delay while it's drawing on screen that if you type, it'll only take in like maybe the second or third character you type. So there you go again, you have another typo. So patience is a virtue and a requirement for this game. And now my cat is upset and wants to be pet. So I will let you see the ending of the game alone, and I hope this was somewhat entertaining. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe or like for more gameplay videos and the odd review and sometimes commentary like this one. And there you have it. I am the Medieval Nerd. You have all been amazing. Retro for life, everyone. And keep the DOS gaming alive.